Glendronach was founded in 1826 by James Allardyce and a group of local farmers. In a short time, Allardyce had built up Glendronach's reputation for its quality in the big cities, but in 1837 a fire destroyed the distillery. Allardyce was bankrupt by 1842. In 1830, Glendronach was purchased by Walter Scott, who was from Tinique Distillery, and he rebuilt the distillery into its current condition. In 1920, Captain Charles Grant, son of William Grant of Glenfiddich, bought Glendronach and had it for 40 years before it was sold to William Teacher and Sons. They added a second pair of stills in 1967. By 1976, Allied Distillers had purchased the Teacher's estate. The distillery was mothballed between 1996 and 2002, then ran again until Pernod Ricard sold it in 2008 to Billy Walker's group, the BenRiach Distillery Company. Billy Walker's group sold it in 2016 at a huge profit to Brown-Forman, along with BenRiach and Glenglassaugh. Rachel Barrie is currently the master blender for all three distilleries. They still use a cast iron 4-ton rake and plow mash tun. Each mash produces 18,000 liters of sugary wort. They add the warm water at 3 different stages to the milled grist. 66 degrees Celsius, then heated up to 88 degrees and last 98 degrees Celsius. The 9 18,000-liter wooden washbacks are made of Scottish larch, and the fermentation time is between 60 to 96 hours. The fermented beer is fed into 2 12,000-liter wash stills, and from there it goes into 2 9,000-liter spirit stills. The 4 coal-fired stills were the last of their kind in Scotland, and in 2005 they modernized to steam-heated coils. The new make spirit is 68.7% ABV, then diluted to 63.5% before being put into the cask. Glendronach is highly regarded for its use of high-quality ex-sherry casks. These are made of both American oak and European oak, where they have previously held either Oloroso or Pedro Menes sherry. After 50 years in the whiskey industry, the manager of Brown-Forman Scottish Distilleries, Alan McConkie, is retiring. For his dedication and service in the industry, he was given the coveted award when he was inducted as Keeper of the Quatch in 2018. The distillery is situated at the eastern edge of the Speyside district and was built next to Glendronach Burn, where the water was just used for the cooling process. The more pure water that is needed for the whiskey distilling comes from the Balnoon Spring in the hills. Well, welcome to Noel's World of Whiskey, and what do we got today? Well, I've got one that's been in the cupboard for a few years, and I've been drinking it, but I just haven't reviewed it. And I got thinking, when I looked at it one day, geez, I haven't reviewed that thing. Why haven't I? Well, there's probably many reasons why. Maybe I was busy reviewing other whiskeys, or maybe there's lots of reviews out there, we'll leave it. But it's Glendronach. Now, this is the revival, the 15-year-old. The interesting thing was, I wasn't after this whiskey, it was after actually the 18, because I'd had the 18 before. I just wanted to get a bottle because I kind of liked it. I had a few grams of it from a friend, and it was called the Allardyce 18-year-old. It was named after the founder of the distillery. But there were supposed to be 2 there at the liquor store, and when I got there, they were gone. So I grabbed the next best thing. So, Glendronach, let's take a peek at it. It is naturally colored. Here's the case. Nice solid case, by the way. I like solid cases. And there you are. Natural color. Non-chill filtered. I believe this is 46 ABV. So, and again, solid canister. Now, let's just put it down here. I'm going to pour a dram ahead of time before I tell you a little bit of the history of this distillery. A lot of you probably know about this distillery through Billy Walker. Because, of course, Billy Walker got it. He purchased it off of, I believe it was Pernod Ricard, and he ended up making a lot of money on this distillery, him and his partners, because they turned it over to Brown-Forman, owns, of course, Jack Daniels. We'll get a little history on this this distillery. So basically, it kind of starts with it's one of the early distilleries that were built just before the Excise Act, which goes back to, I believe, 1823. They're telling me here it's the second oldest distillery. That's an argument. Second oldest legal distillery, still that's an argument. Because I had a couple of, contenders there. So, but we're going to say it's an old distillery. And they basically, it was started by James Allardyce, which I mentioned was the 18-year-old, is named after the 18-year-old whiskey, and a consortium of local farmers. So he led a group of farmers to putting that distillery together, probably to sell their, it was easier for them to get more profit out of their barley, their grain. And it made sense in those days. That's what a lot of farmers did, but they still were farmers too. It was another source of income. This was, it was basically, I think Glenlivet was licensed in 1824, and then, of course, this distillery, I think it was 1826. But anyways, it's in the hamlet of Thorpe in Aberdeenshire, and it's about halfway between Elgin and Aberdeen. Sort of, when we think of the Speyside, it could be argument Highland Speyside, but it's to the east of a lot of the well-known distilleries in the Speyside. So it has a bit of a checkered history, and it actually burned down in 1837. And maybe that's part of the reason that Allardyce got, he ended up bankrupt, because to rebuild it, of course, was going to cost a fortune in those days. These guys were farmers, and they didn't have a lot of cash. So anyways, the interesting thing is Walter Scott from Tanique Distillery ends up purchasing it, and he rebuilds it. And by 1860, it was paying the highest duty in Scotland. In other words, they were producing enough, and the excise man was getting the largest duty out of that distillery in all of Scotland. And of course, during World War I, the distillery was owned briefly by the British government, and it was, I think, sold to, now this is Captain Grant, Charles Grant, and he was the son of William Grant, the founder of Glenfiddich, and he purchased it. And of course, he hung on to it for 40 years, and then it was eventually sold to Teachers, William Teacher and Son, in 1960, and they increased the number of stills up to 4 stills, and it was used as a major component in Teacher's blended whiskey, and I believe also later on Ballantine's. So, but anyways, eventually it became part of Allied Distillers after they bought out Teachers. And that Allied Distillers, the big company Allied back then, and it was closed. They mothballed it from 1996 to 2002, which you'll understand that this here, you couldn't get this for a while because of that period of time. It wasn't available because the distillery was not maturing whiskey, So, but anyways. It was acquired by Chivas Brothers. Pernod Ricard, of course, is the parent company, in 2005. And interestingly enough, they turn around and sell it. Now, this is where Billy Walker comes into it. And he ends up with his partners creating the BenRiach Distilling Company. And they purchased that, and at a later date, I think it was Glendronach, and of course BenRiach, and a later date Glenglassaugh. And they hung on to it until 2016. And of course, that there was a lot of certainly a cult following of Billy Walker and what he'd done in the past with previous distilleries, but this probably really elevated him because this was a sought-after whiskey. Not that it wasn't a sought-after whiskey prior to that, but he basically turned it over to a huge profit. And now, of course, Brown-Forman, the Jack Daniels people, they own it. And of course, they brought Rachel Barrie, the famous, they call him the First Lady of Whiskey. They brought her over to just to make sure there's a consistency in the quality of that whiskey, as Billy Walker had elevated the distillery to that, to where it was years before. So they are trying to keep that that legacy. So, anyways, that's enough of that for now. By the way, Alan McConkie was one of the old-time managers of Glendronach. I hear he just retired, guy, 50 years in the business, so he was just replaced by, I think it's Laura Tomley. So we're losing all these old-timers, these guys that are, they're a piece of the distilleries. So, anyways, interesting thing about this. This distillery uses a lot of Pedro Menes and Oloroso butts. That's what they're predominantly known for. It's not really a peated whiskey, though they are working on a couple of peated whiskeys, but it's known for its sherry influence. So, but there you are. That's the brief history. I wanted to let this sit in the glass for a little bit. We're going to give it the nose, as we usually do. So, to the nose. And right off the bat, some citrusy notes there, but mixed in with it some leathery notes. And I'm getting a little bit of a chocolate. I'm going to say also I am getting, in the background, some floral notes. But this has a fruit forward, fruit and flowers. And I put a few of the sherry bombs out. I won't call them sherry bombs, but I put a few other sherry influenced whiskeys out here. The Glendronach, of course, that's Billy Walker's new distillery. And BenRiach, there's the 12. That's actually the Smoky 12 there, but this is the 12. And of course, this one here, that's a more peated version there. I've got a Glenmorangie Neck d'Or and a Glen Scotia 15 back there. Really good sherry influence one is the Tullibardine, the Murray. So we got all these whiskeys out here that I've certainly enjoyed through the years, and it's nice to compare it with. At one time I'd say this was probably the king of sherry. That and Aberlour, of course, Avenat. But anyways, back to the nose. Really getting the berries here now. And you talk about the citrus notes, the kind of that zest, citrus zest. Okay, let's go to the palate. So much. Wow. What does that tell you? Dark fruit, chocolate, thick, viscous, oily, nice velvety mouth coating. You know, when I do go back to this, and I've had a few Glendronachs through the years, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the 12 either. In fact, I'll review the 12 later on, but it's almost like the perfectly balanced sherry-influenced dram that you're going to drink. But you notice I let it sit for a while, and I really like to do that with this because I really think it helps it. The other thing later on, we'll play with a bit of water because I think that also does some stuff. But I am into the dark fruit now. I've got a full coating on my mouth. Definitely some deeper, darker chocolate influences there. When I had the Allerdies, the 18-year-old, I noticed it was a very dark chocolate influence to it, but this is a great compromise, I'll tell you. I always say with this, it goes in just so smooth, and then you get that warmth. 46%. It'd be a 43 for all I know, but so very fruit forward. The big thing with this is they really work a lot with the PX casks. It's not just Oloroso. The PX it's a balance of and that's again Rachel Barrie's responsibility is to get consistency and get a good balance. My understanding is that this company does not want to change something that it's been really successful with. Now they're still experimenting with new presentations. They've got a port presentation, Madeira, but I think with the traditional ones like the Allerdies and of course the Revival, this is their biggest seller. The Revival, well, the 12-year-old would be their biggest seller, but this is definitely would follow. And they want to get consistency. So the key is to, PX and Oloroso, and that's supposedly what dominates their warehouse. So, anyways, to the finish. It's just, I really do like this stuff here, the Glendronach. Again, I'm getting the leather with the Pedro Menace and the Oloroso influence there. There's bits of honey and vanilla mixed in with that, but the spices are coming forward. Mostly baking spices. Like the cooked cereal notes with baking spices mixed in. And when I say cooked cereal would be sweetened cooked cereal notes. Orange chocolate. Really good description. This finish is going to be a medium finish, medium longest finish. Definitely a medium to long. Very good coating on the mouth, and like when I say a coating, there is a coating on the mouth. So, I think the other whiskey that I remember. Kleinlich has a really good coating like this, but it certainly has a different taste to it. But I mean, it's similar in the way it coats your mouth. So they're both very thick-bodied, and they leave that kind of oily texture in your mouth. But anyways, we're going to add some water. Let's see what water does to this. The big thing I'm finding with some of these sherry cask whiskeys is make sure you do get a little bit of water added to them. Now in this case 46 with a fairly heavy body drink, it can handle water. It's going to bring some other stuff out, I know it will. And that's why we do it, so we can explore the other layers. And I am glad I let it sit for a while. The bottle's been open, but still, it's nice just to have it sit and let it breathe a bit out of the glass. And I'm notorious for opening up a fresh bottle and not doing that, so I've kind of changed my act, and I've been getting in the habit now of even if I have to splice, let's see, a video film there, I'll pause and wait a bit and let it breathe, and then we'll get back into the video. And in this case here, I think we gave it a little bit of time and all that as I read you the history, and now with water. So the leather is still there. The leather is not left. Leather, heather, floral notes. But we also are getting the orange and the citrus notes, the zest. And the sweetness is definitely coming through now. There's one more note in the background there, and it's when I mentioned the malt and the wood. I didn't mention the malt and the wood, but I'm mentioning it now. It's definitely there. Okay, the palate with water. It literally amplifies. That's what water does. It amplifies. It opens it up. Now I am definitely getting the orange chocolate. Some describe this as an affordable Macallan's. Some reviewers actually. One reviewer said, "This is as classy as a 15-year-old Macallan's, if not classier, at a fraction of the price." It's interesting when you compare, because Macallan's, it always had that enigma, but it also has its critics because of its price. But I can use it because there was a time when it was affordable, and I used to get a bottle an 18-year-old bought for me when I was bringing my fish in with my commercial fish boat, and it was a heck of a drink. That's all I'm going to say. But this is definitely in that league, But the difference is, this isn't yet skyrocketed in price. It's gone up. There's no question about it, but it's not skyrocketed. I really believe this is an example of quality whiskey. So, I've heard a few criticized since Billy Walker left. Rachel Barrie's doing a great job on this. So, again, with water, we're just getting a little bit more of what we were getting before. I always kind of think of it as it acts like an amplifier, But this one's for me. Oh, the chocolate and orange, and berries, blackberries. Well, Glendronach, I believe, means I think it's Valley of the Brambles. Bramble, of course, berries. Dark berries. But I am going to say that this here is going to be an 86. That's where I'm going to score it. And it's definitely one I highly recommend. If you can get a bottle, it's just a nice. I think it's a good bottle to kind of. You can rate a lot of your other whiskeys and your sherry influenced whiskeys and that with Glendronach, just as some people do that with Macallan's, regardless of the price. Okay, that's it for now. That is our Glendronach 15-year-old revival review. And I'm going to ask you to drink wisely, drink intelligently, do not drink and drive. And until the next time, so long.